First of all, I'd like to, congratulate all the awardees. And as all of you are startups, I wanted to share, I have many examples I can share from my family, but I wanted to share the original example of TV Sundar Mayangar, or Anna Tata as he was known. And this is a case of entrepreneurship, and it shows how practices which are followed 114 years later are pretty much just mirroring what happened 114 years earlier. Basic principles and the foundations of what is being done is not very different. Although yesterday, for example, I was talking with Mr. Venu Srinivasan, and he told me that BMW Berlin plant, which is where they make the motorcycle, TVS Motors incidentally makes 20% of BMW's motorcycles currently. And the BMW people said that the TVS Motors made BMW bike was better quality than the Berlin plant. So this is quite an incredible journey, but it started very humbly. TV Sundar Mayangar's father, Vengara Mayangar, was a lawyer in Trichy. TV Sundar Mayangar joined Imperial Bank. That is what is now State Bank of India. During the British rule, it was called Imperial Bank. But there was a ceiling beyond which Indians were not able to go up. So he got frustrated, and in his frustration, he decided to become an entrepreneur. So he was going through the bank route, but he decided to become an entrepreneur. First few ventures were failures or utter failures. He had a cycle repair shop, all kinds of things like that. And then he had an idea, because he felt that people from villages going by rail, the railway system was just coming up. There was, I think, Southeastern Railways, which was set up by a Scottish company. So he felt that on the rail system, only British people are going. We need to create some transportation for Indian people. So he decided to actually start a bus service, which connects all the major towns and cities. He needed to borrow money. He had absolutely no money. All his business ventures had no credibility. So he actually, for the first time in his life, he approached his father and asked for funds. With those funds, he bought 5 Chevy buses, American buses. He bought them, and he applied to run the bus service between the various towns in Tamil Nadu. When he applied for it, the Southeastern Railways, who set up the infrastructure, protested and said, he cannot run the bus service because now I've spent so much money, I've invested in the railway system. So how can he set up? So his business plan went for a toss. He was not allowed to do this. Then he came with a compromise that from the villages, he will move people to the railway head, the railway station. And that is actually how the TVS business got off the way. Even then, villages people were not comfortable with the buses. They were used to using, bullock carts or horse carts, and the bus made a lot of noise. So people were scared to board. So his wife actually cooked food. They had a shamiana. They cooked food, and the food was served to people, and people came for the food and incidentally bought a ticket. That is a beginning. But this is very relevant because even to date, as a matter of fact, even when my sister got married about 28 years back, my brother-in-law told me, "Oh, I know your company as Meals India." He was in IIT Madras, and he said he did internship in my company. I asked him, "Why did you do internship?" He said, "No, the food is supposed to be very good." But this is one of the things, the strains that started off giving good food to people, including your employees, is one of the things that triggered there. Going back to the bus service, once they started, one of the things in our family is that attention to detail is one of the areas that we look at. So for drivers, for example, there was no test because automobile was relatively new. If you're talking about in 1911, 1920s, there was no test for bus drivers. So the sons of TV Sundar Mayangar came up with some tests which were very unique and very unusual. One of the tests, there were four tests, but I'll just explain one of the tests. The test is brake response test. So Angad, there's a driver in a dark room. The light is switched on, and how quickly does he press the brake with intervals with no light being switched on. So this is one test, which is a brake response test. So in the Madi, they had about four different tests which were conducted on these drivers, following which they have to drive the vehicle in the with one of the sons sitting next to them for one of the routes, and if they pass the test, then they get cleared. And the sons were very particular. I know because my father also, he learned to drive a vehicle once when he was in Madurai, and his uncle asked him to drive him to Chennai. He was 15 years old. That's how he learned to drive. So his uncle was guiding him. So the personal attention from the brothers ensured that the drivers that were there were of very good quality. The other thing that they found is when they started the bus service, there were a lot of breakdowns. The vehicles used to break down. Punctures were a big issue. And they felt that when they offered the service, their name was going down because they committed a certain timeliness for delivery, and that was not being met. So they took a number of actions. I'll just talk about one which you will find quite interesting. When they tried to understand why breakdowns happen, they found number one reason is puncture. And puncture used to happen due to horseshoes. So the horseshoe used to puncture the tire. So they came up with, they had a jeep, and under the jeep they kept a magnet. So they used to go on all the routes in the morning and clear the road of the horseshoe. With that, their uptime improved. It is not just this, even the drivers used to be paid based on the fuel efficiency and the timeliness. They had a performance pay criteria for drivers, which was based on fuel efficiency and whether he is on time. So there's a certain pay, you get a bonus. If your performance is very poor, then you may get slightly less than the regular pay. So this is the attention of detail. And the reason I'm telling you this is, one is, just look at this as a startup. So he started with an idea. He had to change the idea. The model had to change. Then he looked at excellence. How do I become good at what I'm saying? It was actually not even excellence. Basically that. You're making a commitment, you're saying this time to this time. How do you keep up that commitment? That is, and this is fundamentally, this is one of the points which, even when we talk in our company, the first thing we say, you talk to employees about the vision. And what we say to the operators, the same thing as what we tell the vice president. The first thing is name. Only after that you get profit. Name, longevity, and then profit. So the name is very important, and the name is basically what you say and what you do. The whole drive towards excellence is really towards how do you preserve that name. But these practices were being followed in the 1920s and 30s. Even when the first workshops were set up for buses, they had gangways, there was a layout, there was paint on the floor. That was a type of, the cleanliness was inspected by the sons on a daily basis. So the attention to detail is again the factor that actually differentiates. For a customer, from a customer's viewpoint, what he was experiencing is the TVS bus runs on time. That's it. So it sounds very simple. But I remember 11 years back when I was the ACMA president, I was taking one of the ministers to various stalls, and I think Ashok Leyland had GPS system put up. So Leyland was explaining to the minister, and after that, the minister turned to me and said, "Why are they showing all this to me now? Your family did this 40 years back, not 40, you did it 60 years back." So they did not have GPS. Of course, there was no GPS, there was no electronics available in the 20s and 30s, but they had people on cycles, and they had also phones placed where people could call and check whether the bus is on time and take it. So the attention to detail made sure it was not just this horseshoe magnet, but also having messenger boys who kept track of the bus.